Hey guys! So if you wonder what I'm doing at the beginning of the video, I'm just setting up the technical stuff, which I can only do when I'm live. You have to share it, you have to adjust some of the settings, and it's nothing you can do pre-talk. Some of the stuff you can. People always ask me what I'm doing in the beginning, so that is what I'm doing. Oh, I just put my microphone on. So you there. So hi guys, welcome to the live stream. Nice to see you. Nice. Where did that sound come from? It came from my bag. So hi guys, welcome to the live stream. If this is the first time you've ever been on live stream, then the way you ask me questions is through Skype, and my Skype address is Lisa Cairns 12. I don't read the chat that's in the side, so you have to send it through Skype. If you want to set up meet me in person, meet me in person, and I'll tell you about some events I'm doing. Just let me get my website up. I was going to tell you about if you want to meet me in person, then you can book an online meditation class. So the meditation classes I'm doing at the end of every month. So you can find that in the link below. But if you want to meet me in person, then you can come to one of my retreats. So I have a retreat in the south of France, which I think is in about another 3 weeks. That's the 7th to 14th of July in a very beautiful venue near to where I live, in the Midi-Pyrenees. If you want to do an online meditation class, then you can join me, obviously not in person, but online. Although you could come to my house in the south of France, might be a bit of a trip. They're at the end of every month at 5 p.m. French time, and you can find the link below how to book it. And I'm doing an 8-day retreat in the south of Spain. That was off my website, but it's back on my website. I had to change my website and it got left off. But that's not till the 27th of October 2018 to the 4th of November 2018. And I've also booked a retreat center in India in January, but I haven't put it on my website. That was meant to manifest today, but it didn't. Let's see if I can find the dates for that. Starts the 13th of the 1st, 2019 to the 20th of the 1st, 2019, and that's in Tiruvannamalai, India. And the person that's organising the retreat is also happy to give you advice. The retreat has accommodation, but accommodation if you arrive early. She'll help you with taxis from the airport, especially if you're a woman wanting to attend. It can sometimes be a little bit intimidating, India, and our plan was that this is a way to help people, or help women particularly, go to India. When I first, or a couple of years ago when I did an event in India, I kept having women writing to me asking if they could travel with me just because it's new to them. And I'm not advising people to travel by themselves to India, and I'm not advising, but it is very different. And I travelled alone in India, but the first time I went with people, and I was so grateful they introduced me to it. Although it's very different now in the 12 years that I've been doing, it's a lot easier to travel around. So that should be going on my website in the next couple of days. So that's in Tiruvannamalai, India, in a very beautiful spot. And as people are always asking me for discounts for my retreats, this one is very well priced because it's in rupees. So this one is for people that don't have so much money, but maybe your airfare costs you a lot. So, but maybe it works out Western prices when you add it all up. The retreat. I'm not sure. I haven't done all the calculations yet. So I always like to sit in silence before I do my talks. And it really it makes me chuckle sometimes, people's attitude towards it. There's so many people whose attitude is really great and they really appreciate the silence. And then there's probably the people that don't say anything, but the people that do speak out, I guess I often get messages, why do you sit in silence at the beginning? If you didn't sit in silence in the beginning, I would watch more of your videos. And it just occurs to me that that's it. Like that's part of it, is becoming deeply relaxed in yourself. So talking or no talking is enough. It's like the person is always wanting to be filled up with something. And it's like the silence. But this isn't all people. I would say most probably 90% of people don't write to me. And then it's only half of that do write to me. But it is a common thing that people write and say they've stopped or they don't watch my talks because of the silence at the beginning. So it's totally missing it to me, that attitude. Like if you think it's in talking or if you think it's in silence, then your attitude is wrong. It's in what's happening. And you don't need to be filled all the time. This is enough as it is. And I've been approached by people that want to be my manager. I'm sure I've told you all this before. I repeat myself and I can't remember that I've said things. So I've been approached by people that want to manage me to make me more successful or more famous. And the first number one is that I do this, I'm too relaxed in the way that I share. So I need to be more official. So it needs to look more prestigious, so more official. I'm not allowed to drink cups of teas or coffees or drinks, juices, because this also looks less professional. They'll also detail what colour clothes I'll wear to affect the mind of the person that's listening. And obviously none of my chitter chatter. And that I share too much. Like I shouldn't share as much as I do for free online because it gives away the product. And it's totally the upside down idea, because to me, the repetition of this message and sitting in this energy is what's important. But to a mind full of ideas about getting and what it thinks it needs or doesn't need, then it's about commodity and scarcity and sale techniques. And this isn't what this is about at all. This message is totally or mostly energetical, so it's riding that energy of the talk. And I think having it twice a week is really beautiful. So it's like zoning into that energy. And the energy isn't of peace, the energy isn't of behaving a certain way. The energy is of that emptiness, that nothing is speaking now. So it's not becoming like a spiritual zombie. It's not becoming a particular way. It's remembering that emptiness. And then there is a part to the words. So the mind can calm down, the mind can settle to understand, and the mind can use techniques to settle the mind down. But it's more energetical. And that energy doesn't look like something. It's not a personality quality, a personal quality. It's not a quality of peace. It's not a quality of non-reactivity. It's this quality of emptiness. That everything is empty Everything is happening from no place. And how am I ever going to sell that? People could maybe put consciousness or the I am, but that it's empty. And that's its freedom, that it's empty. That life is empty. Not empty in a negative way that you imagine. But it's not happening to anyone. When it happens to someone, there's suffering. There's no one this is happening to. There's nobody that suffers. And you can see my setup. Isn't that cool? This is the setup of how it's done. You beautiful girl. Did you enjoy your din-dins? Enjoy your din-dins? We've been having a tired day. We've had guests to stay. We've been doing a lot, haven't we, Khaleesi? So we've been having a sleepy day. It might be too much sleeping for Khaleesi. Suddenly halfway through his talk, she might get super hyper. And now to some silence before we begin the talk, the production line. Dun dun dun, what a dramatic title. The production line. Okay, the production line. I'm just smiling at Khaleesi. She sometimes goes through this phases of licking her bed. She loves this bed. Like she's cleaning another dog. It's very sweet. Give you a good old clean, Khaleesi. You're cleaning up your house. It's so sweet. Like, it makes me want to squeak. She's so cute. If you live by yourself, it's so lovely to have an animal. It really is. It's lovely to have an animal anyway. That was another thing that I was going to say, is when I go to India, I need somebody to house sit for me. And so I was going to advertise it on my live streams. But you have to be very experienced with handling dogs. If you can write to me through Skype, and you have to have had lots of experience handling dogs, because Khaleesi is a pure 100% pure wild dog. She's not a domesticated dog, and you can't make mistakes with that. You have to know how to handle a dog. Like if it's a domesticated dog and it's like super friendly, then it's okay. But if you've got a wild dog, you really need to know how to handle it. Like part of my problems with Khaleesi is at the beginning I didn't have a home, and I let people handle her that weren't experienced, and it's not good. So if you're really experienced with handling dogs, and you, for the month of January, feel like you'd like to come to the south of France, it's not hot in the south of France in January. You can have some beautiful sunny days. It depends. It can be rainy, it can be sunny. But my place is super beautiful, and my view of my place looks into a valley in the Mid-Pyrenees, and it's super beautiful. And it's near a very old 12th century medieval village. So it's super cute. But it will be a rigorous interview process. Okay, so the production line, here we go. So what I meant by the title, the production line, is meaning work. So we live in a society that is super successful in survival. Like we're very successful in survival. Most of us don't know death until it's the death of our parents or death of our grandparents, but we see it very rarely. In younger years, it gets more as you get older, but most people don't know death that well. We have an amazing setup in our society. I mean, it's amazing that we get water. We can, not too expensive, we can buy water. We get it pumped to our house. We have sewage. There's so many things that make our life so easy. The washing machine, that really makes your life easy. The dishwasher, you don't really think about it, but it really makes your life a lot easier. The lawnmower, I mean, if you didn't have a lawnmower, you'd have to do all that by hand. I had to do a tiny patch of grass by hand the other day because I couldn't get the fly mow to work. And it's really hard work. Like planting vegetables, keeping livestock, killing animals. Like we buy into this society that's already set up to us, and the internet, computers, it's got so many amazing qualities to it. But it also has this quality where we're indoctrinated to work. Not as bad as some countries. If you're from somewhere like Japan, I think that's more intense, or Asia. But it's put into us from such an early age that the meaning of our life is working hard we're not conscious of it. And there are other meanings they put in there as well, but this is the predominant meaning. So when I was a kid, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people that have come from Western countries, it was very much like, what are you going to be when you're older? And there was a lot of pressure around work and getting a job and being successful. And you were very much guided away from anything that was too artistic and more things that were more practical in society. Not everybody, but a lot of people. My parents were very sweet. I mean, they tried to guide me towards it, but they also had a sense they wanted me to be happy. Joke accomplished. So we're taught from such a young age that what's important is to work hard and produce money and be successful in the production line. Like, we're not taught that happiness is important. We're taught that happiness comes from being successful in the production line. And everything is about production, producing something. Even if it's about kids, because even if you have kids, what you're doing is you're breeding, like you're making new workers for our society. So in a capitalist society, the way that it works is it works off the premise of growth, continuous growth. I always thought that that's eventually going to fail, but it could keep working because the universe is infinite, so we could keep expanding as human beings if we don't kill ourselves. So the premise is to grow. So even having kids is actually helping the production line. So a friend of mine was telling me that in the Second World War, the Nazis created something called Mother's Day because they wanted to encourage women to have more children, to grow up to be fighters for the Nazis. And that's the same as all countries. I'm not saying all countries are Nazis, but all countries have that philosophy, but we're not really conscious of it because we're sort of brought into it, we're born into it, and these ideologies are pumped into us, but we're not really conscious of them. So Mother's Day is a celebration of you producing kids that will grow up and work in this society or create children to work for this society. A few thousand years ago, when we lived in smaller groups, you could imagine that that was really beautiful to live in a smaller group and to produce children that would help support and grow and help the community. When you live in a bigger group like we do, it's a bit invisible and you're unconscious of it because it's so big, you're not really aware of these dynamics. But if you're in a smaller group, then like your work would be really important for the group and you really see the effects of your work. I think this would be something that's very empowering. In our society, we don't really see the effects of our work as such because we affect so many people, depending if you live in a big or small community. But often, like if you work for a big company, you don't see what your big company is doing. So one thing I love about working by myself, and I do predominantly all of this by self, and I've purposely kept it like that. I do have somebody that helps me with organization. I have an accountant. I know somebody that helps me with that helps me with the internet if I get stuck. And so I do have some help, but I predominantly keep it really small and not into having lots of people working on it, because it completely changes things. So they say that what makes a really successful company is one where people feel like it's your family. So people feel like you're working for your family. So there was one idea that I was reading about where everybody had a stake in the company. So everyone has a stake in the company, and you get paid dependent on how well the company does, and this is meant to improve the performance because people felt more connected to the outcome and they felt more like it was a family and a unit. And that's because that's where we came from. We work together as a group in order to survive, but now we live in such big societies that we can't quite see it like that. But that's the roots of our mind when we think about work. Like, that's how our minds are set up. And it's important to understand these things. Like, when I was younger, I had so many bizarre ideas about life and what we were as human. And it helped me, and I think it helps a lot of people to understand and have a more realistic view on what it is to be human and living in this society. A lot of our thoughts are based around survival. Even thoughts about getting on with the group is based around survival. So wanting to be liked and appreciated by people. This is part of survival, because if the group kicks you out, if you're no longer welcomed by the group, then there's a possibility by yourself you'll die, a big possibility. I mean, imagine living on the outside of society. I remember watching this interview with a homeless guy who used to be very successful, and he had his own business. He had a construction company. He had something like 30 people working for him, and it was so stressful that he ended up becoming addicted to cocaine because it was long hours and lots of work to be done. And from that addiction, he ended up doing a felony, and he ended up in prison. And when he came out of prison, he couldn't get any work, he couldn't get his life back. His whole family had turned their back on him, and he had no support, so he ended up living on the street. And his view very much was that he made this one mistake, and now he's kicked out of society and he's no longer welcomed by society, so he has to live on the fringes of society. So he scavenges out of bins. Like, he's no longer welcome in mainstream society. So socially, we are unconsciously or consciously aware of this, and we seek to want to stay friends with the group, or we want to stay friends with the group, but often we're not aware of that. So we go into social situations, we're trying to make friends, we're trying to get on with people, and we're unconsciously running, like we're unconsciously behaving. We're not aware that we're wanting to be liked or appreciated, and that we're playing a game. And from not being aware, it just becomes important to us to get on with people. We're not even aware that we're wanting to get on with people. We're more aware of, or people are more aware of the thoughts that go along with it. So you start thinking, this person doesn't like me, they're such a bitch, this person does this person does that, I don't like this person, why does this person say this to me? And start running stories in their head. And really at the base of it, it's a fear of survival. It's a fear of being kicked out from the group. But then it manifests into a seeking energy, and then into repetitive thinking, and there is a getting lost in that mire, in that illusion of mind. And this is what's happening often in our situations when we're in groups of friends, when we're with work colleagues. We constantly have this urge to get on with people, but we're not aware of that. The human is aware on the surface level of the thinking about who they like or who they don't like, or what somebody said to me, and the mind gets stuck in those thoughts. And that's seeking energy, that's separation, that limits your energy and makes you feel like you're inside the body. You're constantly thinking about yourself, you're in this story of you. It's not that the urge to get on with people has to go. That seems like a natural human urge. I know my dog wants to fit in with groups and she has social behaviours. It's this unconsciousness of what's going on, so an ignorance to what you actually want, and then a seeking to complete something that you don't even know you're trying to complete. And then you just get lost, you get into a fog, and then you're moaning about someone, you're angry at someone, and your mind is spinning on that, but really at the base of it, you're a feeling of endangerment has been triggered, feeling endangered. It could be more complicated than that. It could also be a feeling of powerlessness, a feeling of lack of love. All these feelings get triggered. And all that needs to happen to stop the seeking is to acknowledge those feelings, just to come back to those feelings and acknowledge them. Acknowledge what it is you want. Like often you don't even know what you want, so you go into a restaurant, or you go into the local bar, or you go into the local cafe or the local hairdressers and acknowledge you want to get on with people. Just that acknowledgement is empowering. Rather than walking into the cafe or to the hairdressers and already telling negative stories about people to try to protect yourself, and your body's all tense and it makes you feel like there's somebody in here having an experience that's moving in time, this constant repetition of your story, and it's uncomfortable. So you just acknowledge it, and you acknowledge, my survival feels threatened now. I want to be liked and appreciated. And as soon as you realise what you want, and there's nothing wrong with what you want, wanting to be liked and appreciated in a group is very natural. It's the unconsciousness of it, and then this seeking energy, this running energy that produces lots of stories, this agitation. That's the problem. So in our society, there is such a huge emphasis on producing something and being something to do with work. And this emphasis on it produces a lot of unconscious gains in the human. Judging people for what their work is, judging yourself, feeling like you always have to do something orientated towards work, feeling like you have to be successful, feeling powerless to your job, feeling stuck, not acknowledging what you want because you're afraid. You must have a job, you must produce money. Afraid to live more on the edge of life, like trying to be safe, but that safety maybe isn't safe as you think it is. Like what you've been taught as safe, going against your flow. And all of that happens unconsciously because you're not told by your society what their game is. You don't come out of the womb and as soon as you go to school and be like, we're going to condition you to want to work and think that the goal of life is working and being successful in the workforce. They don't say that, they just do it. They're not even conscious that they're doing it. But that's why you're going to the education system. That's what our education system's doing to us, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it's just all unconsciously happening, and everybody ends up being confused and ends up seeking and getting more and more unhappy. Really, what our first acknowledgement to children should be, teaching them language, is teaching them who they are. It's important to remember who you are, and that's home. That nothing in this life is going to get you home, but that doesn't help the production line. That might make the production line slower, teaching that this is the priority in businesses, in choices. It will completely transform our society. It will happen one day. We will get to it. So the person is often walking around in confusion. The person often feels confused because it's unconscious of what it even wants. It's seeking unconsciously. It's seeking in all these complex areas, doing all these complex things, and all it wants to do is come home. So one part of what I do is working with the person on the human level to understand themselves a bit better, to understand what it is that they actually want, to understand when they're seeking, to understand the discomfort of feelings in the body. And then I also teach this energetic resonance, that isn't you. Who you are is this freedom, this infinite freedom, that nobody's experiencing this, that human isn't who you are. When the person is really tied up in knots, it feels so dense and contracted to the body. When it's really seeking, there is a huge contraction. It feels the chakras are all out of balance and it feels dense and heavy. But there's nobody in here. There's nobody having an experience. Or you could say there's everybody and everything having an experience. This is everything having an experience. Okay, we go to questions now. So if you want to call in, guess what? You have to have a headset with a little microphone in Skype, because otherwise it feeds back and it's not very comfortable for everyone else. I think part of the reason why people get so abusive on the internet and so rude to each other on the internet is because in their everyday life with the people they see, they can't say what's going on inside their head because of this survival thing, this fear of being kicked out of the group. They're not conscious of it. But on the internet, they can be anonymous, so they're like, woohoo! It's not a balance thing. I think it's a reaction to that suppression. I think that's why people get like it. Okay. Hey guys, lots of people on the internet. Hey Isabel. Hi Hannah. Hi Bia. Hi Cornia. Hi Isabel. Hi Vadios. Hi Maria. Beth. Marcelo. Diana. Renate. Diana. Visho. Hi Thomas. Chris. Emir. Phyllis. Thomas. Fabian. Hannah. Okay. We'll call Hannah. Hi Hannah. Oh, I don't think your line is good enough. It sounds like an alien. Hello?
Okay, now.
Oh, there you go.
1 minute. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Just 1 second.
Yes.
Just 1 sec. I just have to make sure that you're not blasting everyone's ears. Okay, go.
Okay. Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, nice to talk to you. Just to see if I can just find the volume for me, because you're very loud for me. I don't know if I can.
Loud.
Oh. Okay, I'll just use one headphone. See if that works. Hey.
Okay. Hi. I wanted to tell you thank you, Lisa.
With pleasure.
Because you made me realize that I was in the mind mostly, not in my. I was just thinking that I was in my body.
Yeah.
For a long time, and it felt very vulnerable down there.
Oh wow, that's amazing, because there is a huge difference between telling yourself a story of what you feel and actually feeling it. That is huge. That's amazing.
Shall I continue to feel that vulnerability there?
Yeah. And once you really begin to feel it, I mean, I can't tell when somebody's really beginning to feel it or not, but once you really begin to feel it, then you can transform it. Like, so then you feel it, like, so say if it's vulnerability, and then you just say what that vulnerability wants. I want to be loved, and that will energetically transform it. But first of all, you have to feel it. You've got to like allow it in. Like, I feel vulnerable, I feel people won't love me, I feel like someone's going to hurt me, whatever it is. And once you've done that, then you can transform it into a more positive vibration, so balance the person out more, by saying, what is it that I want? I want to be loved, and I want to be appreciated, and I want to feel safe. And as soon as you start saying what you want rather than what you don't want, because when people are unconscious, they're often saying what they don't want.
Yes.
When you're saying that, then sorry, I'm being electrocuted by the sounds of your microphone. So that distracted me.
Yes, I'm very sorry.
That's okay.
I was just a minute.
Okay.
1 minute. Okay.
Are you in the car?
Yes, I was driving. I pulled over.
Oh, okay. Nice.
One car wanted to go out. Now I'm.
No, yeah. Okay. So, and then once you've acknowledged what you feel, and you really felt it, not an interpretation of what you feel, but you really feel it. These are two different things. So thinking about what you feel is different to actually feeling what you feel. And then once you really feel it, you acknowledge what it's saying, you acknowledge what unconscious thoughts are there, and then you say what it is you actually want. And as soon as you can, it will take time. You've got to find the right moment, not force it. And when you begin to say what you want, your whole energy will pick up and change. And you've got to spend more time on the human level focusing on what it is you want. A lot of the time people are in what they don't want. So they walk into a room and they're afraid that someone's going to be rude to them, and they're focusing on not wanting someone to be rude to them. And of course that's going to feel uncomfortable, and that's going to perpetuate seeking energy. So the goal on the human level is to relax the human and become more balanced. And notice that the way that the human moves is through wants. That's the way that life, that God, that the divine is moving us. So it's just coming back to what it is the divine is saying. And that always feels expansive and like growth. Like it feels like you're going downstream. It feels like you're flowing with the river when you're in that. When you're telling yourself what you don't want and when you're unconscious, it hurts in the body. And
Yes.
it feels uncomfortable.
Yes. And can I, if I feel the vulnerability and I try to come to the conclusion what it feels like, and then I start thinking too much mind involved before. Is that okay to?
You can do it a little bit, but try to keep moving your attention down to the actual feeling. But think a little bit like what it's about, and you can ask yourself, where does this come from? But the goal is to really allow the feeling in.
Yes, okay, I see.
Yeah.
I will continue.
Nice. Oh, thank you for that feedback, Hannah. That's nice to hear.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, lots of love to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, sweetie.
Bye.
Nice. Is there anybody else that'd like to call in? If you want to call in, just put your say now so it can move to the top. Hey, Chris. Hello, Lisa. Can we talk about the I am if that's possible? Sure, there's a call coming. Hey, Thomas.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Okay, I'm so bad with Skype. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, you got it?
Yeah, I've got it, yeah.
Nice.
I don't know if I was at, you know, when you did the retreat in Hebden Bridge? Well, not
Yeah.
the retreat.
Yeah,
I
the
was
top.
there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm just a bit nervous.
That's okay. You can take your time. You don't have to start speaking straight away.
Okay. No, it's funny that you spoke about school, and I agree with a lot of what you said. And as you were speaking about that, a subscriber that I follow on YouTube uploaded a video saying why I hated school.
It's always like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But a subject comes up and then you get more input from that subject. It's funny.
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk because I was the one that mentioned the addictive
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
So I went to Buxton and I bought headphones.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, God, I don't even know where to start really, but yeah, I spend a lot of time on Facebook and YouTube, and even watching porn, to be honest. And I guess a lot of that is because perhaps I'm trying to avoid fear, or I don't know. I feel like I've come to a place with this whole non-duality thing where everything's at a standstill.
Yeah.
And has been for a long time.
How long have you been listening to non-duality?
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can feel all the frustration.
Yeah, coming up about it. So what was your experience like at school? Like when you've been taught other things, what was your experience?
At school?
Yeah.
Well, at school, I was severely depressed. But yeah, so it was a bit of a blur, really. But I mean, I didn't enjoy school, to be honest. And I agree with what you say about it's a way to get you into the workforce.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, school wasn't a very good time.
And did you feel a lot of frustration at school? Like with the class and what you were being taught? Did you feel like you were able to express yourself?
Uh, I went to a really bad school, to be honest, and most of the time we had supply teachers,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So yeah, no, I didn't feel like I was able to express myself really. I think I was probably in hiding for a lot of it, of being gay, so kind of like hiding out from that and trying to deal with that. Obviously, I mean, it wasn't really something that I expressed at school. But I did enjoy learning languages because I can speak French and German semi fluently now. Um, so yeah, I did enjoy that. And then I went on to college and uni, and kind of that was my passion
Yeah.
for a long time was languages. Yeah, so
And
yeah,
what does your feeling towards them have now? Like, do you have frustration towards the workforce now or towards that now?
yeah, I do actually.
To,
So yeah, so I've not worked in a few years, and or I've had jobs on and off working in cafes, but because I've been so bogged down in all this stuff, I've not been able to hold down a job really.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, and also, I mean, working in service is quite difficult, especially if you're on like a 0 hours contract, or if you don't have a contract, which is the case for a lot of people. You basically you can just be a doormat a lot of the time, you know. Um, so yeah, with work, and also I don't agree with like I don't know. I just think minimum wage. I think we live in a very affluent society, so I think we can afford to pay people more than minimum wage.
yeah,
So I don't really think it encourages hard work or
passion, yeah,
passion. Yeah. So yeah, and the thing is I'm really good at making coffees, and I'm really good around people, and I think that those aspects weren't really reinforced. It was more about trying to get me to a certain level very quickly. Do you know what I mean? So trying to like iron out my mistakes very quickly. But the thing with me is that I'm quite a sensitive person. So being criticised, it's not that I don't want to be criticised, but because it was such an onslaught of constant criticism, which on one side of the coin it's understandable because they want me to learn quickly, but for me it was too harsh. So it kind of had the opposite effect and made me more anxious and more, um, you know. So yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
And can you see any relationship in what happens to you in work as what happens to you with non-duality? Like, is this feeling that you feel towards non-duality similar to a feeling that you feel towards work?
yeah, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, like maybe like some kind of bit. I want to say bitterness or something.
Yeah,
I hope I'm making sense. But yeah,
yeah,
yeah, some kind of bitterness or sense of like abandonment or it's a difficult one to put into words really. Um, like I don't know.
yeah,
I'm trying to think of how I would describe it. But almost like badly done to, I guess,
yeah.
a
And
little bit.
this is really great that you can see this and like feel this and be able to express it. Because basically, the way that I see it, and just take from what I say what resonates with you. You don't have to adopt what I say and believe what I say is true. Just see what resonates for you. Like, I always feel this is like everybody's unique particular journey, and you've got to take what's working in you. And the way you can feel it is that your body knows what's true and what's not, beyond your seeking. So underneath that, you know intuitively what's true, but you've never been taught to trust that. But I'll just
Yeah,
say the way that I see it is that we look at, so the divine, or whatever you call it, consciousness, or this mysterious force is looking through these bodies, and these bodies project the world. So everything you see is an interpretation of your brain. The way that you see the particular colours on the trees, the way you see the sky, your story onto the world, the way you've been brought up, everything is a projection of your brain. There's no external influence as such, because the external is a projection of your brain. So the mothers, the work environment, the fathers, the friends at school, like all of this is your brain. And it's not anybody's fault. Your brain doesn't belong to you. The way your brain has been conditioned, and the flow of your brain and the working of your brain, is something that's happened, and it's you could say it's been affected by the external world, but the external world is inside it. Like the world is a projection of your brain. You're walking through your brain, but it's nobody's brain. It's a happening. It's a creation that's instantly been created, and it's nobody's fault. It belongs to no one. And the brains get thinking patterns and ways of seeing things, and suffering is the identification with that.
Yeah.
So everybody has a particular way. Even in most, if you say there is such a thing as most enlightened person or most unenlightened person, they have a particular way of seeing the world. And the most suffering is total identification of that and total unconsciousness of the fact that it is a projection of the brain, and ultimately is a projection of aliveness. That's the most suffering. The least amount of suffering is when there is this energetic shift and it's seen that everything is that mysterious force, and the human parts, the brain, becomes super aware that it's all a projection of the brain. So the human part understands itself, and that's the least amount of suffering, and that's always changing, the human part, and always being updated. What's happening to you at the moment, and it most probably comes from school and from your parents, is that you're stuck in a loop of disempowerment.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's most probably that's creating the addiction to YouTube and Facebook. Because the great thing about the virtual world is that who you were in the apparent real world isn't the case. So in the virtual world, you get to be someone else. But it doesn't always feel great. Like I meet a lot of gamers actually, and people that are addicted to the internet that create these virtual personas, and there's a real enjoyment of that. But living in the computer the whole time isn't that great for the body. Like it's like an addiction, and it creates an addictive response and a nervousness. And it's also being in the computer all the time isn't that great for the body. I don't think we're designed yet. Maybe in like 500 years we'll be more used to it, the virtual world, but at the moment it's not so healthy for the body. And all YouTube and Facebook and everything is created to create addictions. It's down to whether the particular person that's doing the YouTube channel does that, but it's all being geared toward being addictive. Like to creating the most amount of interest. It's not that it's bad, it's just creating the most amount of interest.
Yeah.
So what you most probably have to work on is this sense of disempowerment, and try to break the addiction to Facebook and to YouTube. The most successful way that you'll find is through using other people. That means like going out of the house, being involved in something, like using other people to help you break it. So when I was bulimic and breaking my bulimia, I created all these strategies to break it. So I created a strategy of like not watching TV when I ate, like only having a certain amount of food in the house, being in people's company at times when I knew it was trigger points. And then after a year or two of this, like it really began to break the habit. But I did things to stop the habit, but I was determined. There was something in me that really wanted it.
The thing is, I feel like I've got quite a lot to say now actually.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. I'm actually a very social person, but I feel like life has kind of orchestrated things so that I'm in this situation now. And so the thing is that I live in an area that I really don't like. I don't really socialize with anyone here. And I feel a little bit like I've been forced into this situation. And I have been trying to get out of it, but maybe it's too mental, or it's like almost like almost like, I mean, I get stuck in like double binds or something.
Yeah.
So like, my mind would say, okay, I could get up and go and have a walk, but I'm not going to do that because I really don't like where I live and I don't want to be reminded of being here. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I don't want to sit here and just be on the laptop. So it's almost like
Yeah.
my mind creates self-sabotage,
Yeah.
you know, and also, sorry, what else was I going to say? Yeah, another thing is that hearing teachings that talk about grace, if you're going to wake up or whatever it is, it's down to grace. I think I kind of have got to the point where I became really helpless with all that,
Yeah.
and like suicidal actually, and I stopped opening up, and I did listen to non-duality, but I started to hate teachers and anything to do with non-duality. But at the same time, I was watching non-duality,
Yeah.
and I stopped opening up, and I got to such a low place, and then something happened. Roger Castillo wrote something that really helped me, and since then it's been more upward progressing. But yeah, I don't know. I became so. I know my energy is probably quite intense. I became really shut down.
Yeah.
I think that became really negative for me because when you don't when you close down,
Yeah.
you can really just become totally like nothing else can get in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm shit. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean. You're in a loop.
Yeah, yeah, and it just became more and more cemented, and I kind of don't know what to do.
To get
Like,
out of it. Yeah.
yeah, like tomorrow, like I've printed out some CVs, and I could go and look for work tomorrow, but I'm so kind of on the I just don't think I'll do it, or I'm just feel so negative about work or about myself that I just won't do it.
Yeah.
And I really hear like I can really understand how I probably come across to people like really disempowered, or like I don't know, like a victim thing going on. I don't know, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so yeah, but I desperately do want to get out of this loop, and
Mm.
I am actually having therapy, which is helping.
Yeah.
But I need to get out of this loop. Really, I can't stay in this loop any longer because it's just not healthy, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, I think it's really great that you acknowledge that. And do remember it is baby steps. Like it's not thinking too um, like too grand in one go, because that's another way to disempower yourself, is to imagine loads and then feel like you can't make that. So it's baby steps. The fact that you're doing therapy is really good. The other thing that I can suggest, and it's a small suggestion, and these are things that I used when trying to break addictive patterns, was things like meditation centers or Buddhist centers. Now, it's not saying that you have to agree with their message. Like it's not saying that, but participating in their events, just getting out and participating in their events gets you out of the house. And often the great thing about Buddhism is, because they are a religion, they do, and because they're quite, like, some of the organizations can be quite big, they do have a lot of financial aid for people, like in the sense that like it's not expensive. When I used to go to a Buddhist center, it used to be like £2 to go for an event. They always like had sponsorship, like you could work for doing this, and you're going to have people around you that are supportive, but you're also going to have structure. And I know that your mind is going to loop you on it, but it's a way to try, if you can. But the most important part is understanding what it is you want at the base, like really focusing on what it is you really want. Like and if it is that, and it's also getting the right want. So if it is the want to get back into life, or if it is the want to wake up, or it is the want to be more social, like really focusing on that want, writing it down, and keep reminding yourself of it when you get into disempowerment and when you get into these negative thought processes. Like just really like feel it, like when you say the want, that it makes you feel expansive, like it makes you feel good when you think of it, like not an disempowered want. Like and you're allowed to think of anything, like you can imagine the greatest things, like even if what you want is to get to Mount Everest, or what you want is to to own your own business, or to, like, even if it's a huge one, or to fly, learn how to fly, like, write it down and use that want, the positivity of it, to help motivate action and really understand the loop. But I'm sure the therapist is helping you with that loop part.
Yeah, I think the therapist, in terms of the therapy and work, I think we're working on like how I became kind of traumatized by certain experiences at work, which is stopping me getting back into work again.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't realize, like, oh, okay, it's not just that I'm lazy, it's
No,
that,
it's
you
not that you're
know,
lazy at all. Laziness comes from disempowerment.
yeah, yeah. I'm actually very proactive and a very,
Yeah.
very sociable person.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
it's also school, and it really is that, like, nobody's inherently lazy. We like to do things. It's that we're told so many times that we can't do something, that every time we think of doing it, the trauma of that comes up and
yeah,
stops the action, and then makes us go to Facebook, to addictions. Actually, we
yeah,
want to be integrated, we want to work, we want to be part of something. It's our natural impulse to do that. It's that
yeah,
every time you think about future, the feelings of disempowerment are being produced. So this is great that you're seeing this.
yeah. So yeah, so it's good, and I would encourage, like, I think we should all go to therapy, like,
Yeah.
even if it's, and I think that for me, what stopped me from going to therapy was kind of thinking along the lines of, oh well, I'm a broken person, and if I go to therapy, it means I'm broken and I'm trying to fix myself,
Yeah.
and da 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 da. And actually, you can just think of it as, oh, even if you just think, oh, I'm going to go for a bit of a moan, and then it grows from there,
Yeah.
because it's so nice just to talk about yourself in
Yeah.
some ways. It is, it's so nice to get
Yeah.
things off the chest, and I don't know, it's actually I've actually found it to be quite fun.
And they should rename therapy. It should be like understanding yourself. Like, that's simple, because a lot of people hear that title and think that it's saying something wrong with you. And
Yeah,
it's not. It's just that we should have been taught this at school, understanding ourselves, that we're all different, and that we've all got certain makeup, and the reason that we're not doing things, and the reason that our life is going wrong, is mostly because we're responding out of traumas and out of conditioning that's painful, and we're trying to avoid that pain.
yeah. And some people are just more sensitive and less resilient in some ways than others, and maybe need a bit more guidance and understanding.
Totally. And it just
Uh,
doesn't work, the education system that we were brought up in, and the way that our parents or the conditioned us through fear or through negativity. If you do this, I'll take that away.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't tell you how many people the last couple of years, you need to get a job, you need to da, you need direction, and I just wanted to say, go and foot yourself. You don't know what I need,
Yeah.
you know. Especially people that I don't know. It seems to happen. I don't frequent pubs quite a lot, but every time I go in a pub, I seem to get into a fight because people seem to need to tell me, you want to work, you don't want to work, da 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 da, you know. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. So
Yeah.
yeah, but the thing is that, yeah, I just wanted to finish on the point that if you're interested in non-duality, it's good to be interested in it, but also think about talking to someone, because that can be, I really wish I did that earlier,
But you couldn't.
because
You couldn't.
I know,
Even, yeah. It's not. I feel about that too. Like, when I got into Buddhism, and like you, you, like, because your mind wasn't at the point of ready of admitting that it needed help. And the thing about non-duality and enlightenment is it sounds so courageous, so it has a positive spin to it, whereas therapy, people, especially men, think like it's saying there's something wrong with me, that's like inadequate, and it's actually the opposite. Like, it's so empowering. And this is
yeah,
exactly the reason why I began to bring in more talking about the person, because I saw that it never happened to me because of my addictions and problems early on. Like, I had to do the therapy. I had to do the therapy because of all those things. I was lucky in that sense, but one thing that I notice is there's a lot of people in non-duality that are trying to completely avoid the
yeah,
personal side of things, and they end up getting themselves in a place, and it's not non-duality's fault, because it's so beautiful that non-duality has this pure message. It's not that it's the fault of non-duality. Like, it's really beautiful, that pure message, but when it's heard from the wrong place, and it can't be any other way, because at that time you wouldn't have been ready to open up to the more therapeutic side of things. Like, it has to play out that way.
Well, because I was better than it, of course.
Yeah, it's the way it goes. But so I think it's really great that you're now at this place, and just notice all the great things that happen. I know it's hard with the addiction side of things, but the addiction will change as you understand yourself better.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
So I wake up in the morning, and by default I feel dread because I don't know what I'm going to do during the day or what to do.
Yeah.
And in fact, my mind races because, again, I don't want to do the addictions, but then again, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what to do? And I could go to Buxton, which is the next town, and I could do these things, but that feels a bit mechanical. Just okay, I'm just gonna go to Buxton just to escape. And I know it can be helpful to do that, but I feel like it's almost like in the back of my mind, I know what to do, but something's covering that up. And maybe it's all the subconscious stuff. I don't know.
I think it's heavily related to the feeling of disempowerment. Like, so it's highly, so you wake up and that feeling begins to arise, and then you're imagining the future, and then you're imagining on all the ways in which you're disempowered. So it's like the feeling's arising, and then your imagination is going with that feeling, and it's a habit. And the best thing to do is stay with the feeling, but the mind can be very strong and keep going into these disaster stories. Is to stay with the feeling and to say, I feel disempowered. Acknowledge where you feel it in the body. So feel the feeling, acknowledge it. I feel disempowered right now. My mind is telling me all these stories. And then try to move to what it is that you actually want. So you want to move to the positive things that you want. So you want to interact with people, you want to do something, and not moving to what the future will look like or could look like. Keep pulling your mind away from that. It's a habit. The habit can be strong, and if you find that the habit is too strong, then the best thing that I can advise is find a supportive environment that's taking you out of that, like something like a Buddhist. The Buddhists are great. Like, there's still non-duality in the Buddhists, and then they've got the more dana approach to things. So when you're in India or in more Asian countries, it's supported spirituality. It's not supported in the West, but there are these Buddhist organizations that will help support you, and it will make you do things. The structure, like get up to, like, I used to volunteer in the Buddhist charity shop. I used to do certain things with the Buddhist center, and they're a different working mentality. It's not about production so much, and it's not about bullying you. It's a different mentality of people.
Yeah.
That is more softer and more about presence and openness. Obviously, that there's some stuff that you could just choose to ignore because that's more religious things. So if you find that your mind isn't able to do what I recommend, then that's the second thing that I would recommend. And then the third thing is that I would say that you've got to begin to trust yourself again, like go with that deeper trust inside of you, and find that strength inside of you, that you're not doing anything wrong. Like, this advice or what I'm saying is not meant to disempower you in any way. Like, it's not meant to be saying that you're doing anything that's not right. And then on the ultimate level, the ultimate teaching is that it's all present, like that everything the presence is. But if that's overdone, then move to the more human side of things, and that will reveal itself.
And I think that's important. And I think the disempowerment because we live in such an individualistic culture, I don't think that helps with the disempowerment as well, because I've not really been supported by family so much, and that's fine. But I think that it's not really helped the process.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's really been calling me and saying, "Are you all right, Tom? Do you want to come out? Do you want to da 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 da?" And I guess that's just the culture we live in. But I've also been, I don't know if you're on MSN, but there've been recent studies that have been done I'll just see if I can find it. I don't know how to escape this. I just want to quickly read about loneliness.
I think disempowerment and loneliness is an epidemic in our society, and I think it's going to get worse. And I think it's to do with the change with computers taking over, the change in male and female roles, and then the internet and living in these boxes.
Yeah, well, apparently there's been some statistics, and what is it? 13% of us feel lonely all the time. 1 million people aged 65 plus are always or often lonely. Lonely people are more likely to develop depression. 2 in 3 people know someone who's lonely. So there's, it's just it really is an epidemic,
And those statistics are only based on people that actually admit it. Just think of all the people that don't admit it.
I know, yeah. So I often think to myself, there are so many people all around. Why am I so lonely?
Yeah.
So it's just such a shame, really, and but yeah, underneath while I've been listening to you speaking, I just noticed this like hopelessness underneath.
Yeah.
And I guess it's more of a feeling or more of a resonance than anything else, and it's just feels like a prevailing thing, but I guess it's good that I'm noticing it.
Totally. That hopelessness goes hand in hand with the disempowerment. From my experience, you tend to feel it it tends to be in the solar plexus, the lower or the higher belly, around that area. It can rise up, like your emotions can change, and it's this feeling of dread. And when you have that feeling, it's going to produce those thoughts. So with that feeling, you're going to produce disempowered or hopeless thoughts. So you're going to view things as hopeless. So when you think about work, you'll view it as hopeless. When you think about the Buddhist center, hopeless. The non-duality, hopeless. So you'll view it from that, and you're actually looking for something that's not hopeless, but it's keeping that feeling. So you're looking for something that gives you new hope, but it's a habit.
Yeah, and I think so that the thought school's coming back to me, because obviously we spoke about school, and I think that at school you're not really taught the things that you need to know. So for example, I really could do with knowing how to do DIY.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I know, and I wish school would have taught me how to cook and how to like how to not fuck up my credit score and all these different things. And I just think that if I had known those things, then maybe things would have been easier now, So I don't know. Just thought I'd say that because I agree with your point about school.
Yeah, I think so. I think totally that the education system is based around separation and based around production, and I think that it's only successful for I don't think it's successful for anyone, but it's only successful for production. That's all it's based on, and it's not going to survive as we begin to change, because what it's going to do is it's going to do to the society this disempowerment, and the more that people live alone and live isolated, it's going to have this hopeless effect on them. And so then there will be a move to this. As soon as people begin to feel that intensity, they'll begin to ask questions.
Definitely. So yeah, I was going to say something, but I've totally gone blank. So I don't know, maybe that means it's time to go and let someone else speak.
Oh, thanks, Thomas, for calling in and being so open.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I think that would be so helpful for other people in your position.
I hope so. And I know that you spoke about people sponsor your retreats, so I want to say to anyone out there who like to sponsor me, I'd be happy to go. I think it'd be really good for me to just be around people.
Yeah, totally. I always recommend retreats. The only problem is because I'm not a huge organisation. Like if I were bigger, always comes with these contradictions. If I was bigger, then you could do more sponsorships. But if I keep it smaller, then there's something really beautiful about that as well. So yeah, if there is anyone out there that could sponsor and that has extra money, and I'm sure there's lots of you there.
Yeah, any Russian oligarchs out there that can help out.
And you're kept anonymous. I think sometimes people are afraid of that. So don't worry that you'll be kept anonymous. They're afraid if they give, then other people will find out, and then
Ah, right.
yeah,
Oh, okay. I understand. It needs to be
yeah,
kept in the club,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, good. It's been really fun to talk.
yeah. Thank you so much for calling.
Oh, that's one thing I wanted to ask. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Right, with the feeling, I
yeah,
find it difficult sometimes to feel the feeling because maybe it's because it's becomes so tight and contracted, and maybe that's because the beliefs are very tight and contracted.
yeah,
But yeah, it seems like I want to feel the feelings, but I can't a lot of the time. And
yeah,
maybe it's a lot of fear or there's fear of fear. I
yeah.
don't know.
But the fact that you've even noticed that is huge. It is really tough to totally allow in a feeling, and the fact that you've noticed that it is really tight. And what well, the reason it's really tight is because your mind is working quickly. So your mind is producing disaster situations. That's why it's getting tight, but you're not really conscious of it. So you can combine it by being aware of these disaster stories, so becoming more aware of what your mind's actually saying, because you've got a surface that you've got all these different layers to what the mind said. So just become aware of these subtle things. So when you look at the paper, maybe you're suddenly having a disaster thought about work that it will never happen for you, or when you look at something on the internet, if there's a negative thought that's coming up. And then as you become more aware of that, then you might find that you become more aware of the feeling and that the feeling relaxes so you can feel it more.
Yeah, I can feel it now actually. Like I feel more relaxed. But with fear, what is it with fear that's so difficult generally, like the energy of fear?
Because it's such an intense feeling.
Yeah,
It's one of the most intense feelings that we have, and it's one of the most primal. It says that you're going to die. And the problem with our mind, and when we're identified with the mind, is it can produce many fearful stories that we're not even conscious of. Like it can become afraid of so many things. The other thing that I would advise is this is what's another thing great about the Buddhists. They're going to love me. I should be.
yeah. You should get commission or
Yeah.
something.
Is the sitting and meditating, because even though that can be quite hellish at first, it does force you to feel your feelings to an extent. Because at first you'll find your
In a
mind
group
just
setting,
goes
you mean?
from
In a
meditate.
in a group setting,
Yeah,
meditate.
yeah, meditating, because it forces you to actually spend half an hour on the cushion meditating, and the mind will go crazy at first. But as the mind stops going crazy, then the only thing you're left with is your body and your feelings. So
Yeah.
that's another good thing about meditation, is it does help with understanding what your body's saying and what's being felt.
I think I could do it in a group setting, but I don't think I could do it on my own, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, and this is the great thing about the Buddhist Centre and what they're
Yeah,
all about. And there's Buddhist centres all over the UK. I used them a lot when I was younger and when I was getting over
yeah,
my coming out of out of education system and trying
yeah,
to get back onto track on life.
yeah. It's funny what you said about with the fears. It's because it's unconscious.
Yeah,
So a lot of it, it's because the fears are running, and especially when when you're awake or on this path or whatever, you know that there's something going on mentally, but you just don't know what it is.
yeah,
It's like I know that there's fears, but it's almost like they've not come to the forefront yet.
yeah,
So I feel really impatient because I want them all to come to the forefront so that they can dissolve,
yeah,
be seen through.
yeah. And when you work it out more, you then understand what you want more. Like that you want safe environment, and it's totally allowed to have like a safe environment or people that are supportive around you. And then as you focus more on that, you'll attract that more into your life because you'll be drawn more to it when you focus more on it. When you're focused more on the fear, then you're pushing that away. You're pushing
Wow.
safe environments away because the fear's coming up, so you're afraid of it. So as
Yeah.
you begin to become more aware of what's going on, you can focus more on what you want, and then you'll go towards that. It's not even something you have to do. It just will begin to happen. Your body will begin to respond in different ways. Often when we're unconscious of something, then we're pushing what we actually want away because we're feeling afraid and we want a safe environment, but because we're feeling afraid, we're pushing away whatever's being offered to us. So
Yeah.
we're pushing others or situations away.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah, and also spending so much time like trying to get rid of fear, which is so draining, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
of course, there's no space for anything else then.
yeah,
If it's not only fear, but then there's 10 other layers that are trying to get rid of the fear.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Lisa.
With pleasure. Thank you so much for calling in. That was a
Thank you.
lovely chat.
And you look, every time I see you, I think you look so healthy, and I'd like to know are you drinking from the fountain of eternal youth or something? Because you
I
look
did,
so healthy and so
well,
young.
that's really sweet. I was 38 last week, so that's very nice to hear. I told my French teacher by accident I was 28, and he believed it. I have to speak in French in my French class, and he thought I was 28, and I was like, yes, but I did it by accident. I told him I was 28 by accident.
Must be eating
But I
so much
do,
nice food
but
in France.
well, I actually what I have been doing recently is eating probiotics. So you
Oh
get
yeah,
it by drinking natural water or by gone off things. So
yeah,
yeah, that sort of thing. And also Khaleesi with the bones. I do think that good bacteria is very good for you. Or bacteria, that sounds really awful. But I have this theory that
yeah.
bacteria, like getting used to, like not being so clean and eating,
Oh yeah,
like that we sterilize ourselves too much.
definitely. And kids get asthma and all sorts and autoimmune diseases because we're just so yeah,
So you could say maybe I'm a little bit dirty, like with
yeah,
Khaleesi. Like I literally feed Khaleesi gone off meat, like, and I touch it, and I can't help but get it onto myself. So, and I think that that has a positive effect on our bodies. But that's just a theory. I might be wrong. It might
yeah,
just
yeah,
all be genetic or the computer and lights.
yeah, yeah. No, you do look super healthy, you know. So yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Anyway, I'm gonna go now.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that compliment though.
To be honest, I could speak forever. I could, you know, but maybe there are other people that need to speak. Maybe I'll speak to you on Wednesday or next Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye. I do have lots of messages tonight, actually. I don't know if there's lots of people watching. Maybe Muji's not giving his talk. When Muji's on, there's less people listening. Hi Lisa, happy Sunday to you. Hi Thomas, another Thomas. Wow, a retreat in India would be simply transcending. Silence is absolutely necessary for people to learn, I feel. You're master of both presence and technology, Lisa. Khaleesi is really zoning into your talks too. She's getting into licking again. Oh my god, you're so cute, Khaleesi. I love to do that too, but the problem is I would love to go to India just as much. Absolute truth, Lisa. We get programmed, operated into the left hemisphere of the brain by society, conforming, masculinity seeking, materialism, over rationalizing. This creates suffering for sure. Fantastic call in and amazing advice, Lisa. And you look much younger than your age, by the way. I'm sure much of that is down to proper diet. Yeah, I do think I eat quite well, but I know somebody recently that ate very well and then the cancer came, but that could have been because of emotions. Like I think having negative emotions and negative thoughts can have quite an effect on the body. Did you say that India would be a retreat format? So the retreat, and I think I'll have some open talks as well in India, but we're going to do a retreat as well. And I think the retreat might be, I'm not sure, I have to ask, but I think you might be able to like live outside. Could you relate to that interaction? Could relate to that interaction. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, Thomas. I think a lot of people could. And I could feel your energy change as you were socializing, Thomas. So I think that you are really a social person, and I think that that will most probably be your direction in the future. I think you're a really good socializer and more extroverted. I'm actually more introverted, but so maybe you would be perfect at this job. A lot of speakers I notice are more extroverts. If it's okay, I call you too. Can I call you? Yes, you can call Zizi. Remember to have the microphone in your headset. Call away, Zizi. There's lots of questions tonight. Lots and lots of questions. So if I don't get to you, that's because there's lots of questions. Hi, Z. Call away, Zizi.
Hello.
Hello, Z.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Z. We haven't spoken before. I thought I recognized your name.
Yes, it's my first time actually live. Maybe I'm under so much stress, and maybe my English is not very good. I apologize for that.
Oh no, it's sounding really good. And we can just sit in silence while the body calms down if you like. Like you can just take a moment if you want.
Thank you. Because it's my first time, I don't know if I should I talk about a particular subject, or should I ask you my question? Can you guide me into?
You can ask your question. Like what did you want to talk about the particular subject or ask a question? What was your?
There are lots of questions on my mind actually, but because it's a
but just
general...
because it's your first time, just let me be aware. Let me make you aware that this is being recorded and will be put on YouTube afterwards.
Yes.
So just being aware about exposing yourself and how much you're willing to expose.
Okay.
That's just
the main... Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. But you can start where you like, and then I'll begin to guide, and I'll tell you what's appropriate or not appropriate, or what I want or not want.
Yes. Actually, about the thing that you were talking about to the previous person, about mind pattern.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the mind pattern and how we actually reflect ourselves to external world and get back whatever we have inside actually. And it just because we all raised in different culture and different situation. It's actually hard to change the pattern, the mind pattern that you were talking about, because you said if you want to change the out world, you have to work on the inside.
Yeah.
And whenever I think about this, I feel more disempowerment because I know that I lost so many times because of that mind pattern, and because the way I raised or many other people, but I just talk about myself. To change this, because let me explain it this way. I went to psychologists and I went to so many classes and I talked to them and I asked so many questions about how we can change our habits and the way we actually see the world. But it just goes like the loop that you were talking about. I think that this is my way. Okay, I want to change it, and I go some days or a couple of months doing some other things, and then I go back to the habits that I used to live by.
Yeah.
And because of that, when I actually look at my life, I see that all the things just repeat and repeat, like the loop.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you feeling angry now when you're saying this?
Yes.
I know, I can feel it because I'm beginning to get angry with you. It's all like one energy, and it's like so if somebody comes to me with energy, it can either be that I reject them or that I begin to feel angry. Like, it's nothing personal that I'm beginning. No, you've got nothing to be sorry about. Just like I've got nothing to be sorry for for you being angry. There's nothing. It's just an energy that begins to arise between us. So let's look at this anger. So why are you beginning to get angry?
Whenever I want to talk about my life, because it seems to me like a failure.
Yeah.
I feel this much of anger to myself and to the world.
Yeah.
I tried so hard to conceal it or to accept it, but it's I guess it's not that easy just to accept the anger of not knowing, you know. I always felt that way, not knowing.
Yeah. So what would be your desired, what would you desire for your life to look like? I give you permission to imagine anything. What would you like to imagine?
For now or for my future?
You can pick whichever one resonates the most. Like something you can imagine whatever you like. Like in the biggest, the most, like you can do anything. Like it can be you would like to learn how to fly, or you'd like to speak like 10 languages, whatever you like go into space, go to the moon, like whatever makes your heart sing. You know, when you were a child and you used to wonder, you can wonder.
Oh yeah, these are the nice things that you said, but to me, I guess just feeling relief, you know, because I think it's been a long time that I have there were a lot of pressure on me, and because of that, because I see my weakness and the other's weakness, instead of loving yourself, loving the others.
Okay, we have to stop because I'm beginning to get angry again. So there's obviously a funny thing that's going on again. So let's go back to what it is you want, because what's happening, so I have to go with what my body feels, and it's nothing personal to you, but the anger is like a no. It's like a firm no that comes up when you begin to do this. So your mind has got a habit of going into victim very quickly, which isn't your fault. I'm not blaming you, or I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, but this is the work. And what your response is more than likely going to be to me is, but Lisa, you don't understand. I've tried all this and it doesn't work. But that's Maya. That's the illusion. That is the work. I know that you don't want to hear that. You want to hear that. Most probably, what you want to do is emotionally get your stress out on me. So you want to tell me how bad things are for you, even if you're conscious of it or not. And you want to put that stress out into the world, because it's built in your body, and when you expose it, it can feel relaxing, but it's actually cementing that habit more, like to keep going over that stress. But you've got to see what your mind is doing. You've got to see Maya, and you can do it. The disempowerment is the Maya, is the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're in close down.
Uh,
So that now what's happening?
I know you're right, because I know this amount of pressure is not right.
Yeah.
So you can see that. I can understand that you see my stress, and maybe you don't want it in your live stream. I'm sorry, but I thought
It's not.
it's okay
I don't think like that, actually, that I do or don't want it in my live stream. I'm just responding to you.
Okay.
So when I say that big no that comes on, it's not like emotionally dumping on someone isn't. So emotionally keep putting your stress on someone isn't the answer either, because it's just encouraging your habit. So actually
Yes.
what I'm doing is I'm just responding to you compassionately, and I'm not thinking about what I want for the live stream. I try to think about having good quality so people aren't having terrible Skype quality. But as far as you and me are interacting, I'm responding to you from me, from my feeling towards you. And my responsibility is not being anybody dumping their feeling on me. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is in my best way possible to point you to home. And that sometimes might be harsh, and I have to do it from my own feelings and my own sense of what's going on in the conversation. And I do it with absolute love. Like, even though anger comes up, anger is a very productive and can be a very productive emotion, because it stops something. It stops a certain situation. But so let's carry on going. You're doing really well. It's not easy to do this. You're doing really well.
You have any suggestion for me?
My biggest suggestion is that you need support. Is that you need support with this, because your mind is going to slip into negativity. Maybe in different moments of the day, it's different, but from what I'm experiencing now, your mind is going to slip into negativity very easily. So you need to be around other human beings that pull you out of that and help you go into a different mentality. Have you ever watched Cesar Millan, this dog trainer?
No.
So he's all about sorry, I love dogs and I've studied dogs a lot. So he always says, when you've got a dog that's having problems in its particular environment, like, the way you heal it is by putting it into a balanced pack. So a balanced pack of dogs. And the way that my biggest suggestion for you is to be in an environment which helps take you out of that negativity and helps pick you up. That would be my first suggestion to you.
You mean I need some support and
support? Yeah, totally. Because your mind by itself, even if you go to your mind by itself, is going to have that tendency. So I'm talking about constant, like, living in an environment which is supporting you for a period of time.
Okay.
To help change the way your mind sees things. Like, you need to use other people for that. That would be my first line of suggestion. My second would be getting to know what's happening inside of you. Like, really getting to know what's happening inside of you.
How can I find out what's happening inside? Hello?
I just
I'm sorry.
I'm just
I
waiting for that answer to come. You have to understand what it is that you want on the human level. And then on the absolute level, seeing that that human isn't who you are. The human is a happening, and who you are is that which is experiencing the human. I'm sorry, I know this isn't the way that you wanted this conversation to go, but I want you to know that you are loved and that you're not kicked out of life, that this is a mentality and that life has always supported you. It's just that your mind is focusing on what it didn't get and what it doesn't want. As the mind begins to soften, you'll see that everything was always supporting you. You were never alone. You've never been alone. And that you have everything you need inside of you. I send you lots of love, sweetie. I'm going to move on to another caller now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, it's 8:12 already. I think that's enough now. I have to go and walk Khaleesi. There's so many people that have left messages and I haven't even got to reading them or answering the questions. Lots of people tonight. I send you lots and lots of love, and we shall speak on Wednesday. Thanks, guys. Bye.